Cimoooooooo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final match of the 2020 YugiTuber Grand Championship. We've got Farfa, we've got House of Champs, and we have Joseph Rothschild, MBT Yu-Gi-Oh! For the last and final electrifying commentary.
Hey, how are you doing? I am so excited to be casting the very final match of the YugiTuber Grand Championship. Two fantastic duelists on unbelievable runs to the finals and presided by resource judge number 1245, aka Distant Coder.
So we've got an interesting rule set for this. For any of you who saw the semifinals and are familiar with the Pegasus Challenge, we are still going to be implementing that rule set for this, but there's also going to be a static Pegasus rule applied on top of that, so that, as we're going to see at some point, we will know what that is at the beginning of each of our duels. And if that weren't enough, how we are playing this round is that both House of Champs and Farfa each picked an era that they wanted to play a specific format of. So one of these games is going to be House of Champs, the second will be Farfa's. House of Champs won a coin toss, so he's going to be going first. And then if it goes to a game 3, I actually picked the third and final format. So the first game is going to be Troop Dupe Scoop format. Game 2 is going to be Hat format, or pre-Soul Charge era Yu-Gi-Oh! And then the third and final match will go to Next Challengers. Everyone loves some good old shit-all epically format.
Wow, those are three completely disparate formats, and not only are the decks that are legal in those formats completely different, the Yu-Gi-Oh! That is being played is just so fundamentally foreign to each individual one of those eras. I think the duelist who walks with this is going to be the one with the more cohesive Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience, something that spans literal decades in order to seamlessly transition from Troop Dupe Scoop to something like Burning Abyss. But of course, it all could be completely nullified by the extreme power of the Pegasus rule that we will be playing under.
Yeah, you can't undermine that at all. So the static Pegasus rule for Game 1 is that all monsters are going to be treated as Destiny Hero Defender, which means that if there's any face-up monsters on the opposing side of the field when a player takes their draw phase, they're going to draw one extra card for each of those monsters. That could definitely be a huge tempo swing in either player's favor and could make this be a very long, drawn-out game, but it looks like Farfa is going to be going first here. Pegasus rule Max C is going to be taking into effect. This is Troop Dupe Scoop format, so we're not going to see as many explosive plays as you might see in like more modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, but definitely a very terrifying format for sure.
And then Cyberjar, the activation in House of Champs' standby phase, gonna be met with a Trap Dust Shoot in draw phase. Wow, this is one of the most innocuous cards that was ever this powerful. Just an incredible piece of hand disruption that's really only available at early stages of the game. We'll go ahead and resolve the effect of Cyberjar now, revealing off the top for House of Champs a whole bunch of Monarchs.
Look at these throwbacks here, Joseph. I love this. So it looks like House of Champs is going to set a Morphing Jar to his field. Sangan's going to get destroyed by this Cyber Jar, funny enough. We're going to see Farfa summon out Snipe Hunter to his field, and both Farfa and House of Champs are going to be adding a lot of cards to their hand. We're going to be seeing multiple Rises getting fired off here in the coming turns, which is so exciting. Rise is one of my favorite cards ever. Snipe Hunter is also a pretty cool one, too. Basically one of the only random, quote-unquote, cards that really ever saw competitive play, aside from, like, you know, 6 cents, which is just absurd. But right. Nonetheless, we're going to get to see just how powerful Snipe Hunter is when Farfa's sitting on a hand of 8 cards.
Yeah, both of these players' grips are going to be phenomenal for the entirety of the game. I mean, this is Troop Dupe Scoop format at its most powerful because of the Defender bonus, but Confiscation is going to complicate things very, very badly for Farfa.
Yeah, there's a reason these cards are banned, both Confiscation and Trap Dust Shoot respectively, because yeah, ripping a card out of the opponent's hand is good, and the cost is pretty much just marginal. It does not matter in the slightest, but the hand knowledge is what makes this so key, and arguably some people would say that's why they should exist, but I'm very happy they're banned.
You know, I actually don't dislike them. I think this is a type of Yu-Gi-Oh! Interaction we just don't have anymore unless it's being used by something like Topologic Gumblar Dragon, which just rips 15 cards out of the grip. Targeted removal from the hand is a staple of all other card games, and it's weird that it only exists in these extremely old banned cards like Dust Shoot and Yu-Gi-Oh! In the draw phase, we're firing off said card and another card out of Farfa's grip.
Yep, so there goes a copy of Ryza in Farfa's hand. Interesting that House of Champs tribute set over that Snipe Hunter that he brain controlled.
Well, is Ryza's effect mandatory?
It is, I believe, as a matter of fact. So, not really getting much value there. We're going to see Painful Choice, though, the Pegasus rule for this turn. This is going to be disgusting for this format. So both players are going to reveal 5 cards. One's going to get added to their hand by their opponent, and the rest are going to be sent to the graveyard. Just look at what Farfa's picking here. Like, all of these options are horrible.
Yeah, obviously, if you give him 1 Malicious, it's not that bad. But with 2 Maliciouses, it means that he's going to be able to summon from the graveyard no matter what. Looks like they will be giving him the dupe, adding the Treeborn Frog to the hand of House of Champs. Not that big of a deal. It's not like it would have been coming back from the graveyard anytime soon anyway. We'll go ahead and banish one of those Maliciouses for the remaining copy in the graveyard before tribute summoning Ereza, and you are about to see why this card was so feared.
Yeah, being able to stack your opponent's deck. We're going to see Torrential, though, come down, though, in response, so that won't go to the top. Fortunately for House of Champs, he's not going to have that card go back. But yeah, being able to just stack your opponent's deck. We've seen this cards before, like Phoenix Wing, Wind Blast. That's why these decks were so powerful. Controlling what your opponent draws, they're not seeing new resources. It's not as bad as, say, a Yada Lock, but it might as well be. We're going to see Farfa just set a couple cards here and pass, and that just might be the end of his turn. Let's see what this Pegasus rule is for House of Champs' turn. Not before another Trap Dust Shoot. Man, this card is so annoying. Having exactly 4 cards in hand for House of Champs is unfortunate. It's going to shuffle away Mobius here. Disturbance strategy going to be the Pegasus rule, the OG Trickstar reincarnation.
I think we saw a little bit of disturbance strategy played at the start of Trickstar format, in which people were trying to Droll Lockbird out their opponent or burn them to death with Licorices. Soon it was dropped as it was realized the card actually sucks. Here it's just going to recycle the hand for both players, and of course House of Champs coming out on the bad end of that exchange by virtue of only having 3 cards, but not before the 4th piece of hand destruction is activated this game. Trap Dust Shoot, Trap Dust Shoot, Trap Dust Shoot, shoot!
This is actually the 5th if you count that confiscation as well. So, Lavavel Chain, though, going to be the Pegasus rule. So both players can either send a card from their deck to the graveyard a la Foolish Burial or stack their deck with any card they want on top. Looks like Farfa's going to put a Stratos on top, and House of Champs are going to send a Treeborn Frog to the graveyard, preparing for next turn. Here comes Premature Burial, targeting Disc Commander in the graveyard. Whoa. We're going to see why this card is banned, but MST going to take out that Premature Burial before it can resolve, and House of Champs definitely dodged a bullet on that one.
Yeah, Pre-Errata Disc Commander is a house in decks like this. Laval Chain is actually not that big of a deal to resolve just because its effects aren't that potent unless they're combined with something like Disc. And reasoning the activation in House of Champs' standby phase, what do you even call?
Looks like House is going to call 6. I mean, yeah, them getting a Monarch's bad, but they only activate on Tribute Summon,
it's also good for, like, Malicious? I guess I could see it.
That's true. Yeah, now it's unfortunate. I think this is a bit of a misstep here because House of Champs knew that Farfa had that Stratos on top, and now we're going to see Farfa calling correctly as Mobius was the next card that was summonable off of that reasoning, so that is unfortunate. Farfa attempting to use Stratos, but with no targets left in deck, that is unfortunate. Premature Burial now from House of Champs. He's going to go after Jinzo that was sent to the graveyard, I believe off of Painful Choice. Whoa. That's going to shut off all of Farfa's back row. We're going to tribute this Sangan for a Cyber Dragon. Man, what year is it? And now we're just going to fire off the Sangan, get a card trooper, probably just go to battle and be completely unimpeded in this battle phase.
Yeah, people really underestimate the innate power of cards like Jinzo. I mean, they're just so strong in these formats where trap cards are almost all of the removal. Looks like this turn they're going to fire off a...
Well, they're resolving Destiny Hero Defender being the static Pegasus rule first, so Farfa gets to draw 3 cards for the draw phase before the standby phase, and now we're going to use a real Pegasus challenge rule, in fact, which is you choose a monster, spell, and trap from your graveyard and set them all onto your field. That's the fun of the Pegasus challenge, is that there's even some effects that aren't even really reflective of real-life Yu-Gi-Oh cards that they incorporated, and in my opinion, why it's one of the most fun events to ever take place at any sort of Yu-Gi-Oh tournament if they do host it.
Oh, absolutely. If we could just get an automated Pegasus and play Ranked Pegasus Challenge, then finally Yu-Gi-Oh would reach its apex form. We're going to go ahead and fire off this set copy of Premature Burial, I believe. After House of Champs sets a copy of Call, Mobius, and a Mystical Space Typhoon. Unfortunately, the way quick plays work, this Preemie will resolve, and let's see what we get out of the graveyard. A Snipe Hunter.
This is going to be huge. Farfa with 7 cards in hand, and we might just get to demonstrate how powerful this card really is. We're going to pitch a copy of Machine Duplication out of the hand. As long as he doesn't roll a 1 or a 6, the target is going to be popped, and he's going to take out that set Mobius, and Snipe Hunter is not once per turn. It's a little bit fair, though, because it is 1 for 1, and you're actually not always going to hit with it, but sometimes you don't even care. Sometimes you just want the card in the graveyard because it's something like a Malicious, like a Destiny Hero Disc Commander. Now we're going to see Brain Control from Farfa take this Jinzo, and this is a lot of damage. We're going to tribute Sangan for Ryza, and is this going to be game?
I mean, it certainly looks that way. And House of Champs admitting defeat. We have made it through Game 1 on the back of a windmill turn, including Snipe Hunter. Wow. I mean, a lot of people complained about the card when it was first printed, but it kind of feels like Yata in a lot of ways. Kind of an unassuming card that, on a board state where you're already kind of ahead, can just swing things massively in your favor. And here we go for Game 2. It looks like our static Pegasus rule is going to be Summoning Curse.
This is interesting. This is actually a relic of that format, thanks to Corey McDuffie, as a matter of fact. So Summoning Curse, if a monster is special summoned, the current controller of that monster banishes a card from their hands. So both these players are going to have to be careful when they special summon here, because they're going to be losing resources when they do it. But we're going to see what happens for this first standby phase. Sixth Sense is going to be the card. Oh, man, you're always going to be calling 5 and 6. Let's see if either one of them can hit it. If they hit a 5 or 6, they're going to be drawing 5 or 6 cards, respectively, but they're going to be milling if they don't. We're going to see House of Champs mill 2, and it looks like Farfa's going to do the same.
Okay, so a Soul Charge out of Farfa and a Upstart Goblin reveals very little. House of Champs, it looks like, is on hat. Trap Tricks, Trap Hole, Nightmare in the graveyard, and were they able to find a Mere Mellow? Looks like not.
Oh, and it looks like they're actually just going to correct something here. They are still going to be drawing their 6th card for turn, so they're going to just be taking the correct card that should be in House of Champs' hand and milling, discarding what would have been otherwise not in his hand. So, quick correction of the game state. Thank you for that, Distant Coder. But now we're going into the next turn, dragged down into the grave. So both players are going to view what their opponent has, and they're going to discard a card out of the hand and then each draw 1 card. So, they're not really losing cards, but having that hand knowledge is going to be huge here. House of Champs missing out on that Max C. That is really unfortunate.
It is, but of course, I mean, in hat format, there were decks that it didn't matter for, and Dynatherium, the take out of Farfa's hand, what are they on?
Now, this alludes to me that the only deck that I can think of back in the day that played Dynatherium was Infernity, and that might be one of the reasons why Farfa wanted to play this deck. And given the fact that Farfa just set every card in his hand, we might be seeing Hat versus Infernity. This is really exciting. The Pegasus rule for House of Champs' turn is Cold Wave. That is so unfortunate. That's really going to prevent House of Champs from advancing his game state at all here, so that's not going to do much. He's just going to pass. Farfa's turn is going to come around now. The rule is Cup of Ace, so we're going to flip a coin. If Farfa calls it right, he's going to draw 2, but if he's wrong, House is going to draw 2.
Now, I think the last time Farfa used Cup of Ace, he failed. Let's see. And it is consistent, if nothing else. Tails never fails, says Farfa in chat before losing a coin flip.
Now, Farfa doesn't really have much going on here. You might not be too impressed by Infernity if you've never seen it before seeing this, but Infernity is a deck that doesn't require, or wants you to not have cards in your hand, rather, and so that's why he just wants to get everything out, and we don't really have an Archfiend right now, and that's really why we're not getting things going too much here. Lullaby of Obedience is going to be the Pegasus rule.
For this?
This is tough. House of Champs going to call Dynatherium because he knows that Farfa might have one, but there might only be a single one. But it looks like there is another one, so that might go to House of Champs' field here. I guess if you're Farfa, if you know that House of Champs is on hat, you could call Myrmelio, you could call Artifact Moraltac, because that should trigger on special summon, so you'd get a free pop, which is kind of cool.
I like Myrmelio just because it pops one of the set back row, but I guess you probably want to be the aggro deck. Your opponent doesn't have any monsters on their side of the field. If you ever are allowed to assemble a combo, you'll just go way over the top of their archetype. Looks like he is calling Moraltec, and yeah, there's one in the deck, obviously. That will summon, and then I think we'll get to pop a card.
It's still crazy to me that Moraltac used to be one of the most feared cards in the meta for this time. You wouldn't think, like, yeah, it does destroy face-up cards. It seems really good. But just on the face of it, when you look at how modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Has evolved, this card does not seem that terrifying.
Oh, man. I walked into many a set Moraltec and cursed my luck at popping the wrong one. Now it's just one more speed bump on the road to full Adamancipator combo. All right, House's turn to take the initiative, staring down an artifact, and a Myrmello is finally found.
Yeah, Moraltech going to take out that Dinotherium for its effect that when it's special summoned, you get to pop a card. So now Murmelio is going to come and get a copy of Bottomless Trap Hold. Talk about the throwbacks here. Going to go to battle phase. Murmelio's going to swing into that Infernity Necromancer, and that confirms it. House of Champs has to be very careful moving forward.
Yeah, the problem with Infernity is that you just have so many opportunities to pop off, and top decking the right card can just change the entire tempo of the game, just like that one. Archfiend off the top. Are you every one of my opponents from 2013?
Lucky House of Champs has the Solemn Warning, so that's going to be good for him. That's going to stop some of the shenanigans here, but he has the Necromancer, Abyss Dweller for both players, going to be the Pegasus rule. We're going to see House of Champs immediately fire off a Sanctum after the Pegasus rule resolves. Going to get a Moral Attack. Is he just going to take out the Necromancer? Potentially looks like he does have to banish for the Summoning Curse that is happening as the static Pegasus rule. And now let's see if Farfa has anything else. He's just going to go to battle phase, swing over this Murmelio for 500. That's fine, but, you know, without access to your Archfiend, this is not going to be well for him.
Yeah, very, very heads up from House of Champs just popping the Archfiend before they can get anything started. A couple of Infernities in the graveyard still are quite frightening based on what is in the back row. I mean, we saw Soul Charge milled off of Farfa. You can bet there are a huge number of Reborn effects in this list.
Absolutely. So grass looks greener as the Pegasus rule for the turn. So Farfa's going to mill 5. Not the biggest grass ever. There goes another Archfiend. We get to take a look at the rest of Farfa's deck here. To a degree, we know that he's playing Forbidden Lance. That was very common back in the day. Forbidden Lance was like a $20 to $30 super rare for no reason.
It's like Duel Links now.
We're going to fire off this Potted Duality, and then here we go. Talk about the throwbacks, Joseph. Firehand? Man, this is the bane of like every Playground Yu-Gi-Oh! Player's existence.
Do you remember like actually getting mad about running into Moraltech and trying to out Firehand? I seriously remember it feeling like the most impossible thing in the universe. Now it's laughable to even imagine someone playing any of these cards.
One of my favorites was actually taking either of the hands and just demolishing my opponent's board by going through every hand in my deck and just slowly, piece by piece, just because they left a monster with greater than 1600 attack on the field. That was pretty nice. We're going to see a Mystical Space Typhoon, though, in the end phase after this battle phase here from Farfa. We're going to take out a Set Call the Haunted. That's pretty good. House of Champs could have used that to brought back that Moraltech, so that's unfortunate. Now, here's another real Pegasus challenge call out. Each duelist may draw up to 2 cards, but loses 1,000 life points for each card they wish to draw. So both players are basically just going to Pot of Greed for no reason.
Yeah, I can't imagine them picking anything other than 2, especially if I'm Farfa and I'm on a combo deck. House of Champs going to pick 2 as well, not particularly surprising, and let's see what Farfa got. Rhoda!
The Reinforcement Armor is a pretty good one. That's going to allow him to get an Armageddon Knight. Armageddon Knight can just help him set up a little bit more here, so we're going to see this come down. That's going to be met with an Effect Veiler, so not going to happen today. Instant Fusion, though, going to be the follow-up from Farfa here. Going to probably get Carbonala Warrior, I believe was the target. Yes, it is. It's just a level 4 so that you can go ahead and make an Xyz play. Farfa does have to banish from his hand, though, per the static Pegasus rule, so he's going to get rid of an Infernity Break, and now we're going to see what happens next. Are we going to see a potential overlay here? We're going to flip Archfiend Eris, as a matter of fact, and wait a minute. Oh, no, actually, this isn't game. Carbonala Warrior can't attack. It's Instant Fusion.
Right, I know. I had the exact same thought process, and I would also be shocked if House of Champs didn't have some way to access an artifact on his opponent's turn in the back row. I mean, but he might not be able to play through this! Oh my god, are we jokingly gonna win the YugiTuber Grand Championship?
Yeah, so Farfa needs to actually use the correct materials for this Gagaga Cowboy, but this was a card that people feared very much back in the day. If your life points were below 800, Cowboy was going to bang the rest of them down. Is this going to be how the Grand Championship ends? Farfa does have to banish because he did special summon. We're going to detach, but another Effect Veiler comes down to stop the Cowboy. House of Champs is barely getting out of this by the skin of his teeth and actually is up on cards because of the static rule, banishing all of the cards out of Farfa's hand.
Wait, but he didn't activate anything at end phase. If he had something like a Call of the Haunted to bring back a Moraltech to destroy the Cowboy, he would have to do it. Kaiser Coliseum is going to make it very hard to make any kind of play that's going to out the Cowboy. I mean, Okay, that'll do it. Whew.
That's a good one. Yep, Darkhold Forbidden Lance to protect the Cowboy. If House of Champs doesn't have any way to deal with this, albeit a Sanctum or a Call of the Haunted or any way before that Gaga Cowboy's Ignition effect gets to resolve, this is going to be the end of the game. House of Champs is going to set 2 and pass. This might be the end of it unless the Pegasus rule can come in and save him here. It's Shockmaster applied to both players. We're going to roll the die here and see what happens. We're going to see 1 to 2 for monsters, 3 to 4 for spells, 5 to 6 for traps.
Oh my god, if he rolls traps, he wins. Okay, spells.
It's
all right.
spells. Okay, that's probably a very good outcome, if not the best for House of Champs here, depending on what he has in that back row. We're going to go to main 1. We're going to see this Cowboy potentially resolve.
Oh my gosh, he's shilling. That's it!
And just like that, House of Champs is defeated by Farfa on the back of Gaga Cowboy playing Soul Charge Infernity. We didn't even get to go to game 3. We see that House of Champs' back row was clogged with artifacts, the double Scythe and Morale Tag, paired with the copy of Sanctum in the back row.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's so
He could
rough.
have done it. The MST would have done it if Shockmaster hadn't hit spells.
I know, the MST was the reason that he lost. That's so unfortunate. Oh my god, Joseph. I just want to say this was an absolute blast commentating this year's tournament with you.
Oh,
We got to
absolutely.
witness some crazy, crazy matches. Honestly, these format matches specifically were very good to watch. We might have to revisit some of these for next year.
Oh, absolutely. I do think there's a bit of poetic justice that Farfa was able to come all the way from a burn FTK in the first round of the YugiTuber Grand Championship to burning his opponent out in the last round. Just fantastic.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already checked out the rest of the tournament, be sure to do so. Thank you so much for watching as always, and we will see you next year.